What's poppin'? What's poppin'? How's everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of Life According to Rick. Now, today's episode is going to be a little different. Usually we talk about fatherhood, relationships, life lessons, growth, and everything that comes with being an adult. But today, I want to talk about something that has always been a part of who I am, the geek. And when I say geek, I don't mean it as an insult. I mean someone who's passionate about the things that they love. Someone that can talk for hours about movies, superheroes, stories, and the worlds they create. Because before I was a husband, before I was even a father, before all the responsibilities that comes with adulthood, I was just a kid who loved movies. And that kid never left. Growing up, Saturday mornings were special. You'd wake up, turn on the cartoons, you would grab your bowl of your favorite cereal and just explore these different worlds. Every cartoon had its own universe, its own characters, its own stories. When I look back, I think that's where my love for storytelling really started. Then later I remember watching Siskel and Ebert. And for those of y'all that might be a little bit too young, Siskel and Ebert were these two guys that would kind of like critique the movies that was out in that time of period. You know what I'm saying? In that time frame. And I was a little too young to even understand the debates that they were having, and I didn't know anything about directing, cinematography, or acting. But something about watching them just talk about the movies and everything like that, like it just fascinated me. Looking back now, I think I was discovering my love for film before I even knew what film meant. Maybe it wasn't just the movies, I think it was the experience. Going to the movie theaters, the smell of popcorn, lights going down. And honestly, to this day, one of my favorite parts about going to the movies is the previews. If I miss the previews, forget about it. Like, I'm uncomfortable. Like, it's like a ritual. Like, I have to watch the previews. I want to know what's coming out, you know what I'm saying? And it's like you get to see it in the big screen. You get a little taste of what's to come, right? And for those few minutes, you're just getting introduced to brand new stories, brand new worlds, and that feeling never gets old. Now, when people talk about Marvel, everyone immediately thinks about Iron Man, and rightfully so. That's the beginning of the MCU. But before Iron Man, we had Blade. Blade showed that Marvel characters could work on the big screen. And let me tell you something. Wesley Snipes embodied the character Blade. Like if you go back and you watch those Blade movies, especially the first one, I feel like the first one was such a classic. And to be honest, I mean, I'm pretty sure if Wesley threw on that leather jacket, like he could do it. I mean, he showed up in Deadpool and Wolverine, the little quick cameo, and I was like, man, my dog back as Blade. Even for like that little quick, you know, amount of time that he was in the movie, like it was amazing. Then came X-Men, then Sam Raimi Spider-Man. And man, those movies were special. For me, Tobey Maguire will always be my favorite Spider-Man. Sam Raimi understood that Spider-Man wasn't just about fighting villains. It was about Peter Parker, just a regular dude from Queens trying to do the right thing. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And that's what made him relatable. Then the Amazing Spider-Man came out, and I'll be honest, at first, Andrew Garfield's version didn't really click with me. It took me a little bit to kind of appreciate his version of Spider-Man. Then Tom Holland came along and brought Spider-Man into the MCU. And suddenly we're seeing things fans never thought we see. Different Spider-Men sharing the screen. That's the magic of storytelling. So now I want to get into a little Q&A if you want to call it that. Who's your favorite Spider-Man? I'm curious to know. So please leave your comments down below to let me know who's your favorite Spider-Man. Is it Toby, Andrew, Tom, maybe Miles Morales? I like Miles Morales, if I'm being honest. Like, he's like a dope version of Spider-Man. But there's no wrong answer. Every generation has their Spider-Man. And while you're at it, what's your favorite Spider-Man movie? Let me know because I love to hear it. I think for me personally, my favorite Spider-Man movie, if I'm keeping it a buck, I would have to say Spider-Man No Way Home. Only because although Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was one of my favorites, and Sam Raimi's one of my favorite directors that, kind of brought Spider-Man to life, right? But anyways, going back to Spider-Man No Way Home, it was just the way that they put that movie together. Like it was just so fire. And the multiverse saga, for me, this is my opinion. So y'all can form your own opinions, if you wanna also leave comments and chime in on this, you can. I'm open to listen to everybody's opinions on it, but I feel like the multiverse saga kind of lacked a little bit. Phase 5 for Marvel was, I don't know, it was missing something. It just didn't hit, and especially with everything that happened with Jonathan Majors, they were supposed to go with the Kang direction, and then that didn't fall through. So it kind of set them back as far as like how they were mapping things out. But going back to Spider-Man No Way Home, just the fact that they were able to, you know, introduce that multiversal element into it, and they were able to bring these three Spider-Men together. Like it was just so dope how it played out. And I think in that aspect, it was just like all these generations were brought into one. So it kind of made you appreciate like what Marvel was doing for that movie. So I think that's why it's one of my favorite ones because you got to see all the different elements of the different Spider-Man just combined in one screen, which is super smart. It was dope. Then if we go back to 2008 when the MCU was first born, like for me, Iron Man became my favorite Marvel character. And a huge reason for that was Robert Downey Jr. Because he didn't just play Tony Stark. Like my man's embodied Tony Stark. Like he became that character. If you read the comics, there's a lot of things that Marvel didn't do because obviously because of Disney, but Tony Stark it portrayed a lot of Robert Downey Jr. Like the confidence, the humor, the flaws, the vulnerability, everything about his performance felt super real. And when you look at Robert Downey Jr.'s own journey, someone who went through very public struggles, legal issues, like my man's went through addiction, like people questioning if he'd ever get another chance. Marvel took a chance on him. And he turned Tony Stark into one of the greatest superhero characters ever put on screen. I think the Infinity Saga really put the MCU on the map. Like it just those stories and the way everything came together was just spot on. I mean, obviously there was some changes here and there. They couldn't go very much comic accurate, but I think the way they told the story themselves was amazing. And when we finally got Endgame, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, but listen, I bawled my eyes out in that movie. At the end, spoiler alert, Tony Stark dies. And because you don't connect with these characters overnight, it's like it took years of connection, movie after movie, story after story, watching Tony Stark grow, watching him change, becoming that hero. When that moment happened, you could hear a pin drop in the movie theater. Nobody said a word. Like it was super quiet. And then you started hearing the sniffles. Like I'm that ass. Like it was crazy. But because everybody in that room understood what they had just witnessed, it wasn't just the end of a movie. Like it was the end of an 11-year journey. And that's what great storytelling does. It makes fictional characters feel real. So like you're watching this happen in this movie. You know that it's fake, but somehow you're like, damn, like I just lost my dog. And that's why this week the Doomsday trailer came out. And I have to tell you, when I saw this movie trailer, as corny as it sounds, yo, I got goosebumps. Like I had chills because it felt like, yo, Marvel's back. Not because of one character, but because of the possibilities. For years, Spider Man was over here, the X Men was over there, Fantastic Four were somewhere else, different studios, different universes. If you want to get into studio rights and all that, I think that would like have to be another episode for another day because we don't want to get into the legalities of all of it. But anyways, now we're entering an era where these worlds can finally collide. The conversations comic book fans had for decades, like what if the Avengers fought the X-Men? If these characters could all exist together, those possibilities are finally here. And I'm stupid hype about that. And that's why I trust the Russo brothers. Like they did such an amazing job with Infinity War and Endgame that because they've shown us how they know how to handle these massive stories. They can put a huge cast together, huge battles, but they never lose sight of the characters. That's what separates a good blockbuster from a great one. They make you care. Spider-Man Brand New Day is almost here next week. I'm mad excited. If you know me, then you know Spider-Man has always had a special place in my heart. And not so much that, but Harlem loves Spider-Man. Like I feel like for Harlem, that's his favorite Marvel character. And just to see how he loves Spider-Man is so dope because it's kind of like life goes in full circle, and introducing him to the Marvel characters early on in his life and seeing how he enjoys the characters and he loves watching them and stuff like that, like is fire. And I'm gonna be watching the movie Saturday with Ricky and Kiana. We're trying to continue our Marvel tradition. I know we kind of took a pause, with them not living at home. They have their own lives and stuff like that. So we're trying to get back into that tradition, make it a point like, hey, this movie's coming out. Let's go watch it. So I got a date with my kiddos watching Spider-Man, continuing our traditions because that's what movies has always been for me. It's more than entertainment. It's it's memory. And that's why I think we love these stories so much. It's not just about superheroes, it's about the people we share these moments with, it's about the memories we create, it's about the feelings that stay with us long after the movie ends. Because when I look back at everything we talked about today, the kid who woke up Saturday mornings, grabbed his favorite cereal, and got lost in cartoons, the kid who sat there watching Siskel and Ebert talking about movies, the kid who loved walking into a theater, smelling the popcorn, and watching those previews roll, that kid never really disappeared. He just grew up. And now instead of watching these stories alone, I'm getting to share them with my kids. I'm getting to create those same memories. And that's the beauty of storytelling. A great story doesn't just entertain you, it becomes a part of your life. It becomes a memory. It becomes something you carry with you. So whether you're a Marvel fan, a Star Wars fan, sports fan, music fan, whatever it is, never be afraid to hold on to the things that bring you joy. Because growing up doesn't mean you have to leave everything you love behind. Sometimes those things are the very things that remind you who you are. The geek never left, he just grew up. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Life According to Rick. If you enjoyed this episode, let me know in the comments. Who's your favorite Spider Man? And what was your favorite Spider Man movie? And what story or character has stuck with you throughout your life? I want to hear from you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep enjoying the journey.